Okay, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us here today for this special topics webinar series for cooperative management, governance, and leadership. I'm Erin Hancock. I'm the program manager for the education programs at the International Center for Cooperative Management. And we want to acknowledge these are exceptional times for all of us, of course, and that we're all taking things day by day. So we appreciate you making this part of your day today. Our communities most certainly need us now, and they'll certainly need our leadership after all of this in the regeneration phase. So we want to acknowledge Julian being here today and everything it takes for him to be here today to lead this as well when things are shifting by the day. But that's why we're so pleased to be able to keep doing this work, because we know that we're all trying to maintain some focus on the future. So, okay. So if you weren't yet able to tune into the two previous webinars in this series, I'll highlight them for you because we have the recordings up on our website at managementstudies.coop. So living our co-op values, applying an intercultural development model to achieve diversity, equity, and inclusion. That was with LaDonna Redmond. And then just last week we had learn what content marketing and the fifth cooperative principle have in common and how to leverage it with Michael T. Jackson. Again, recordings up on the website. So we at the International Center for Co-op Management are pleased to continue to elevate the co-op economy through online and in-person business education. The online portion is really useful right now, as we're all finding. I'll note that we're currently accepting applications for our 2020 cohorts of the online master's, graduate diploma, and certificate in cooperative and credit union management. So if these interest you, please chat with me throughout or get more information at managementstudies.coop. Okay, let's jump into today's webinar. So this webinar series, this is the third of 4. I'll mention the other ones again at the end, but we have cooperation and the Preston Model beyond urban regeneration with Julian Manley coming to us from the UK. So this presentation is going to trace the origins and development of what has come to be known as the Preston Model, how and why it's emerged, and what makes it distinct from other urban regeneration schemes. So although the model includes the development of actual co-op businesses, it is a pan socio-economic approach to community, business, and society that is based on participation and desire for the contribution and change above a narrow pursuit of creating wealth for its own sake. It is as much about cooperation as it is about cooperatives. So Dr. Julian Manley, our featured speaker today, is a social innovation manager at the Center for SME Development at the University of Central Lancashire. I did look up how to say that properly from the UK. Hope you did it okay, Julian. That's in Preston. He was founding member of the chair of the Preston Cooperative Development Network from 2017 to 2020. He's the member of the Labour Party's Community Wealth Building Unit and a member of the interim academic board of the Cooperative University. So Julian, thank you so much for being here and for keeping the spirit alive at these times. I will run a quick poll as we transition over to you. So folks, you will see a poll pop up. We just want to get a sense of your familiarity with the Preston model. So it's going to pop up right now. If everyone can please respond. Okay, people are starting to respond. So what we're seeing is half the people who are saying it's new to me, some saying I've heard of it before, but still have a lot to learn, and others saying a fair bit, but I want to learn more. So it looks like you have a good, a good group to work with today, Julian. Obviously, people are hungry to learn more. So I'll close that poll now, and over to you, Julian.
Okay, thank you very much, Erin. And just to say that I echo the thoughts about the difficult times that we're in. I'm certainly on a personal and a professional level struggling here to keep focused and to not get too disappointed with the effects of the coronavirus lockdown here in the UK, which is affecting our cooperative network directly, and hoping that the work we're doing in Preston will sort of overcome these difficult times at some future date, and that our colleagues and cooperators who are suffering difficult conditions at the moment will maybe find a way to survive and be supported so that we emerge stronger at the end of this tunnel. So I'm going to talk to you about the Preston model, how cooperatives and cooperation fit into the Preston model, and how this is different from other urban regeneration schemes. And I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about why it happened in Preston and why in Preston people started to think differently. So I'm going to go all the way back to the 3rd of November 2011, where we had in Preston a large inward investment project which would completely transform the town centre. And you can see there a picture of what it was supposed to look like. And quite honestly, many people thank the day that that particular project failed due to its general ugliness and the way it would have destroyed the character of the city. But that's not the way people were thinking in those days. So in 2011, largely as a result of the financial crash, or the effects of that, the ripple effects from 2008, when this particular project collapsed, and we're talking about a multi-million-pound project with lots of famous stores coming into Preston, and the idea that Preston would be converted into a hub, a commercial hub for that part of the Lancashire region in the UK. When that collapsed, people were shocked, depressed, and very worried that Preston would end up like so many post-industrial towns in the north of England, more or less ghost towns with shells of industrial warehouses, factories that had lain to waste and empty for many years. Unemployment would rocket, and things would start to look very bad in Preston. Basically, we were faced with what you can see on your screens now, just a black hole, and it was really quite difficult not to despair. Now, although that's true, if you go all the way up to 2018, as this article demonstrates, between 2011 and 2018, instead of going down the black hole, and instead of Preston becoming one of those left behind towns, as we say in the UK, it turns out actually that the fortunes, the economic and community fortunes in Preston actually emerged stronger than ever. And so the question is, how did it happen? What happened between 2011 with the collapse of inward investment and 2018, where suddenly things seem to be going much better in Preston? And you can see from this particular graphic the extraordinary progress of Preston compared to other similar towns and cities in the UK. This is from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and it shows that Preston is by far, in 2018, was by far the most improved city in the UK. And I think that graphic really does demonstrate how striking and how important that transformation is. So something has happened. Something happened between 2011 and 2018, and this is what I'm going to talk about now. So this is the story, and this is something to do with tapping local wealth. What people understood after the collapse of inward investment was that there was not going to be another opportunity in the near future to invest in Preston in the way that the Tithe Barn project had promised, and that faced by austerity, faced by government cuts, faced by a hostile central government, faced by the results of the 2008 financial crash, since there was no inward investment, people in Preston, in particular led by a progressive local council, Preston City Council, people attempted to see things differently. And so people scouted around, in particular, as I say, the leaders of Preston City Council, and in particular, my friend and colleague, Councillor Matthew Brown, looked around the world for different ideas and tried to think creatively about what could be done in this situation. And one good idea that came along, which is a fundamental part of the Preston model, is the idea of anchor institutions. The idea of anchor institutions originates, or as far as we were concerned in Preston, we found out about it from the Democracy Collaborative, in particular the work that Ted Howard and colleagues pursued in Cleveland, Ohio, where they understood that there was a lot of money in Cleveland, but that money was very often spent elsewhere. So any money which was available in Cleveland was not available to the community. An example of this would be anchor institutions. So you have anchor institutions in any city. In Cleveland, you have a lot of significant anchor institutions who generate a lot of money, but who don't necessarily retain the money in place, in situ. And the idea of looking at anchor institutions was to see if those anchor institutions were able to retain some of the money they generated and retain that money in the local area for the benefit of the local area, for the benefit of the local community, instead of spending that money elsewhere. And this idea of asking anchor institutions to spend more money locally brought about significant results, as you can see in this table here. Anchor institutions were institutions such as, for example, the University of Central Lancashire in Preston, the two local councils, the Lancashire County Council, Preston City Council, the local hospital, different educational establishments, the police. These are institutions in Preston who spend a lot of money and who are not going anywhere. So whatever the situation, the anchor institution, such as the university or the hospital, is not going to go away. It's not going to disappear. It's going to stay, as it were, anchored in the local community. And if that anchor institution is able to spend more money locally, then the local community will benefit. So what we did is we went to the different anchor institutions, went to the procurement officers, the finance officers of different anchor institutions, and we tried to persuade them to spend more money locally. Instead of giving contracts to people outside Preston, people from, for example, from London, the rich southeast of England, we were asking the procurement officers of these anchor institutions to see if they could change their procurement habits. Would it be possible, instead of automatically contracting a global corporation based in London, for example, we asked the anchor institutions, would it be possible for you to change some of those procurement habits? And at first, many of the anchor institutions, many of the procurement officers in these anchor institutions shrugged their shoulders. Sometimes we were laughed at. It wasn't really understood why they should do such a thing, but little by little, purely through persuasion, we were able to change the habits of the procurement officers in such a way that the local spend changed dramatically, as you can see on this slide here. So in the local Preston area, where in 2012 there was 5% of anchor institutions spent locally, in 2017 it was up to 18.2%. And you can see the figure there in pounds, a very significant shift in millions and millions of pounds spending in the local area. This is in Preston. And in Lancashire, which is the general geographical region around Preston, the change in spend is even greater. So we move in from 2012 a 39% total spend of the anchor institutions in Preston to, in 2017, nearly 80% total spend. And there you have in pounds the amount of money that change signifies for Preston. And as you can see, a very significant change of spend. So suddenly, the local anchor institutions were spending much more money locally in Preston, and all of this was achieved simply through creative ideas. Nobody invested any more money in Preston. It was simply that any money that was normally being procured was being procured locally instead of outside Preston. So all of this was done entirely through persuasion and creative ideas, not through any kind of economic plan or investment, certainly nothing like the Tithe Barn project, the inward investment project that failed in 2011. So here's a source from our colleagues in the Centre for Local Economic Strategy, CLES, who supported Councillor Matthew Brown and the council in contacting anchor institutions and trying to persuade them that they could spend more money locally instead of outside Preston. And so here's a little list of how to do this. If I just read them very quickly, number one, have a political and social vision, a unifying framework, and that it's important to communicate that vision to the anchor institutions so that the procurement officers and anchor institutions were able to see that they had a social value role in Preston that they may not have perceived before. Understand what you want to achieve, the economics of it all, but also the social and behavioral. Very often, it wasn't a question of the economic matters concerning procurement. It was often a question of the social and behavioral elements of procurement. Sometimes procurement officers simply hadn't considered the possibility of spending more money locally because they'd got into habits of procurement, procuring from big global corporations. 3, persuade senior leaderships in anchors and elsewhere to be supportive of this. 4, understanding scale of impact. 5, developing strategies, statements, getting to know each other. So we had a series of meetings where we got the different anchor institutions together and they were able to ask each other, how could they do this? How could we spend more money locally? How did you do this? What was your idea? And sharing ideas about the ways that they could do these things. 6, developing governance arrangements, strategic, operational. 7, undertake a rounded set of activities. Economics supported by social. And as this talk continues, I want to emphasize the fact that we're talking about a socio-economic plan for Preston. It's not just an economic plan, and that in itself distinguishes it from previous plans we've had in Preston, urban regeneration plans such as inward investment and so on, which focused primarily on the economic. In this case, we're talking about a social transformation as well as an economic transformation. Now, that's a very important aspect of the Preston model, and it provides a buy-in for procurement officers and a buy-in for the local community. 8, measure the impact, monitor change, social community impact. 9, influence others. So little by little, people would get to know about what was going on, and by word of mouth and by encouragement, others might be influenced to spend more money locally. And of course, 10, be positive and at the same time realistic. So being positive and realistic are not opposites, but in fact, being realistic is a positive thing in the sense that it builds up trust. We were often told by the procurement officers that it couldn't be done, and they put up legalities, legal issues in saying that they couldn't change their procurement habits. But it was pointed out to them that actually there were two ways of spending more money locally. One is that the procurement laws are actually based on values above 180k pounds for goods and services, and above £4 million for works. Now, that means that anything below 180k for goods would be much looser in terms of being able to offer and tender contracts to others. There wouldn't be such strict competition rules for procurement as were laid down by the European Union. So a lot of people were not aware that there were these thresholds. And of course, there's the 2012 Social Value Act, and that Social Value Act enables people in the UK to change the criteria for competitive tender so that more emphasis is put on social value than simply economic value. In other words, the best price. And now this would very often, the social value would very often work in favor of local businesses. For example, if part of the social value criteria for new contracts was what is your carbon footprint if you win this contract, well, obviously for a local business, the carbon footprint is very small. If it's a local business with 2 or 3 vans, then their carbon footprint is very small compared to a global corporation that's flying something into an airport or trucking something in from the European mainland, for example. Another question, another criteria for these social value might be how many quality local jobs would you create if you won this contract. Now, it might be that a global corporation might create jobs, but maybe those jobs would not be either quality or local. They could be temporary jobs, 0-hour contract jobs in anywhere in the world. But if it's a local business, it's very likely that that local business will provide local quality employment. And so the local businesses are starting to become more competitive if the contracts and the tendering emphasize social value criteria. The second good idea was the idea of cooperative development. Now, the first idea of anchor institutions was based, or we took a lot of those ideas from Cleveland, Ohio, and the Democracy Collaborative. This way of looking at cooperative development came largely from the Mondragon cooperatives in the Basque Country. And what we asked when we're thinking about developing cooperatives is anchor institutions would start to spend more money locally, as I've just explained, but then they would reach a stage where they would say, look, we've spent a lot of money locally, but actually we can't spend any more because there's no business in Preston that will sell us these things. And so we identified that as a gap in the local economy, and we have set about trying to fill the gap in the local economy by creating worker-owned cooperatives, so that at some stage in the future, when we have the cooperatives that fill the gap in the economy, the local anchor institutions and other businesses are able to spend even more money locally. And not only that, they're able to contract not any business, but cooperative businesses. So they're contracting not only an economic benefit for Preston, they're also contracting a social and democratic benefit. So this is, as I was saying before, this is part of a social as well as an economic transformation for the city. The local council interested in the idea of cooperatives to generate wealth, to fill the local economic gap, approached myself and colleagues in the University of Central Lancashire and asked us to feed back to them if we thought that there was potential for cooperative activity in Preston. We did some scoping activity and we wrote a report, and as a result of the report, recommendations were sent to the council, and the council took those recommendations on board and began the development of cooperative activity in Preston. We created the Preston Cooperative Development Network, and that was a network that is a network that is loosely based on the idea of the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation. That is to say, a network of cooperatives that are joined together in order to support, mutually support and sustain each other without competing with each other, and sharing the wealth and the employment that's generated by cooperatives within the framework of the Preston model, within the framework of the increasing local procurement from anchor institutions. So the Preston Cooperative Development Network was established in 2017. And the objectives are, as you can see on the screen, providing information, advice, consultancy and training, providing premises, equipment, support, facilitating access to finance investment, access to suppliers, markets and customers, and encouraging cooperatives and any body that supports the principles of cooperatives to create a forum for networking. There are two ways we want to create cooperatives. One of them is this, the transformation of existing businesses. So as we know, the demographic of a lot of Western industrialist countries is such that a lot of the owners of businesses are now reaching retirement age, and we are looking into ways of persuading retiring business owners to offer those businesses to their workers and transforming their businesses into worker-owned businesses. So that's one of the ways we're looking at increasing worker-owned cooperatives in Preston. And another way is to create businesses from scratch. And as you can see in this graphic here on this slide, on the left you have a picture of a table on legs and the word intercooperation. That is representative of the Mondragon cooperative way of organizing cooperatives. So at the tabletop you have the networked cooperatives, and these are supported by 4 pillars: educational, financial, R&D, welfare and health. And that represents, if you like, the Mondragon model. And in my conversations with different people from Mondragon, they are absolutely adamant that the network of cooperatives must be supported by these 4 pillars, and you can't miss one of those pillars out. And so we started considering the kinds of ways we might have a network and might have supportive pillars in Preston, and we could see that it wasn't rocket science. It was quite easy to see how the different organizations could be joined and networked together, how we already have a university, we have a guild and credit union, we have graduates from the university who might fill the economic gap that I mentioned before, and then the anchor institutions would be able to take advantage of that by spending more money locally. So we could see that this kind of organization was the kind of organization the Preston Cooperative Development Network exists to promote. And then as a result of these ideas, we applied for funding, and we have funding now from the Open Society Foundations, and this funding will help us to create 10 worker-owned co-ops that are networked together under the umbrella of the Preston Cooperative Development Network. And one of those cooperatives will be a cooperative education centre, a Preston Cooperative Education Centre. And what we're doing here is we're taking our lessons from Mondragon if you remember the pillars, one of the pillars of Mondragon is education, and in Mondragon they began with education. Before the first cooperative was created in Mondragon, they created a technical college, and they worked for many years changing the culture, in enabling people to understand what it is like to work in cooperation. And there were many years of education building up the foundations for cooperative transformation before the first cooperative business, Ulgor, in Mondragon was created. So what we're saying in Preston is, yes, we understand that worked in Mondragon. You can't just create businesses out of the blue. People need to have some kind of help or support in understanding what it is to create cooperation. So we are developing a Preston Cooperative Education Centre and University as part of this project. And in the course of that, we're developing relationships with Mondragon, and hoping that our relationship with Mondragon will become ever stronger. So we have a visit from LKS Mondragon Consultancy and Training. Depending on the situation with the coronavirus, they were supposed to be coming for a 4-month period from May to September of this year. One way or another, that's what we're expecting from LKS Mondragon, and they will help us to understand what works in Bilbao, what works in Mondragon, and how we can learn lessons from the Basque Country and the cooperatives in Mondragon for our own project in Preston. And a further idea, an extension of those two ideas, which are the core, are the ideas of creating a university, a Preston Cooperative Education Centre that's also a university, and also a bank. In the same way that Mondragon has a university that is a cooperative university and exists to serve the cooperative community in Mondragon, in that same way, we want to create a cooperative education centre that is a university that has practical hands-on modules to help people create cooperative businesses, and this will be similar to the work they do in the Otalora Management Training Centre in Mondragon on the one hand, and on the other hand, university degree education, which is what they do in the university in Mondragon. Of course, in Mondragon, they discovered, and we have discovered as well, that ordinary banks, high street banks, will not give loans to local cooperative businesses. And so when we've run out of the grant money, we want the existing cooperatives and future cooperatives to be funded in an autonomous way, and we want a bank that lends money to worker-owned cooperatives, just like in the Basque Country they have the Laboral Kutxa Bank. And so we are in the process of creating a Lancashire Cooperative and Community Bank for that purpose. We expect the bank to be up and running, and also the Preston Cooperative Education Centre. We expect both of those to be up and running in the space of 2 or 3 years from now.
Hi, Julian. We had one question come in.
Yeah.
Ernest is asking that when you mentioned the small island in southern Italy B2B mutual credit system, are you speaking of Sardex?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Okay. He's saying there's the small island in southern Italy business-to-business mutual credit system. Is that Sardex? Or is that not contextually? I'll get clarification and we'll do that again.
I'm afraid I don't really know very much about the cooperative system in Italy. I mean, we do know that in the north of Italy there's some interesting small cooperatives that are linked together, which have also been a successful model. But our cooperative model is based much more on the worker-owned cooperation that you see in a place like Mondragon.
Thank you.
What this slide here shows is how the University of Central Lancashire may get involved in creating the Cooperative University, along with the Cooperative College in Manchester, and along with the projected Preston Cooperative Education Centre. And the idea, of course, is that universities now need to obviously to educate undergraduates for the world of the future, but maybe we can do a little bit more than that. Maybe we can actually provide concrete employment opportunities for people, so that undergraduates that graduate from the University of Central Lancashire in Preston, instead of finding jobs elsewhere, maybe we can encourage them to create worker-owned cooperatives and remain in Preston, so that the talent that is that emerges from the university can stay in Preston. One of the problems we've had in Preston is that young people with talent and education tend to prefer to find work elsewhere out of Preston. So we're working to try to encourage young, talented, educated people to remain in Preston and to contribute to the business and community atmosphere in Preston through the development of worker-owned cooperatives. And you know, this has become quite successful and quite well known in the UK. So, for example, in the Times Higher Education supplement, there's the idea that the university can change, and that the University of Central Lancashire can be an example of change, of commitment to the local community. And this commitment to the local community emerges naturally from the Preston model, because the University of Central Lancashire, and any university in any city, can be an anchor institution in the sense that the university spends money locally, so it can increase its local spend. But of course, a university does much more than just spend money. A university is about culture, education, transformation, and in our case, it can be related to democracy and development and social innovation, and so on and so forth. So there's this idea that maybe the university can become more than an anchor institution, and that's a very encouraging way of imagining the university of the future. We have received a lot of attention, and this attention means that we're able to not just concentrate on the local, but expand to the national and even to the international. And I think this is an important way of helping everybody understand that although a lot of what we do is about the local community in Preston and in the region just outside Preston, these ideas are transferable nationally and internationally. So for those of you who know anything about British politics, you'll see that we have the ex-leader of the Labour Party there, Ed Miliband, who came to the university to talk about the Preston model. We have still the current shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, who also came to the university to talk about the Preston model. And in the picture on the top left, Michael Sheen, the actor. The Labour Party, as a result of work in Preston, has very much encouraged the Preston model as being a model for future development in society, and they created this community wealth building unit in order to do that. So the ideas, the local ideas of the Preston model are being expanded to ideas for a future society on a national scale. Maybe these are the kinds of answers we need for the future post coronavirus. Just the final slide here to emphasize that what I've been saying before, that the Preston model is often talked about in terms of community wealth, increasing the money that can be spent in the local economy. But actually, it's also about doing this in a fair manner, according to cooperative principles and values, so that a sense of ownership, a sense of commitment to democratic principles is combined with an increase in wealth. And I think that this is an absolutely key factor in the Preston model, so that we don't just focus on generating more and more money, but we focus on how that money is generated, how it's retained, the quality of the jobs that are created, and the generation of participatory democracy through the principles of cooperative businesses, little by little finding their way into our local communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. You told me ahead of time that you were going to have trouble sticking in the time, and you were perfect.
I put my timer on.
And you gave us so much, I think, to be inspired by and to think about. And we've had actually a few questions already come in. So let's take a look at those. So Eric Tusking, located here in Canada, asked, were there credit unions in Preston?
Yeah, we have credit unions, but what we want to do is create a bank which is specifically directed towards the principles of wealth generation and social transformation that we find in the cooperative principles and values that we're trying to promote. And that's why, although we do have credit unions, we want to create a bank specifically directed at our model and our way of working, which will be this Lancashire Cooperative and Community Bank. And within a period of 2 or 3 years, as I said before, we're well on the way with that. It's a massive project, but within 2 or 3 years from now, we expect to have the first branch of our bank opening in Preston, and so we're really terrifically excited to be able to do that. And that bank will be available for businesses, but also for individuals as well. So it'll be, to all intents and purposes, a bank and provide banking services, but of course according to cooperative principles and values, and its specific remit will be to provide loans for startup cooperative businesses and businesses that adhere to cooperative values and principles.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Sonia Navkovich asks, do cooperatives have indivisible reserves and dual accounts like in Mondragon?
I think it's too early days to talk about things in those ways. I mean, although I've been mentioning Mondragon, I have to sort of emphasize, and maybe I don't emphasize enough, that we're at the very beginnings of our progress here, and that the cooperatives that we're creating are not following a strict template as they do, for example, in Cleveland, Ohio, with the Evergreen cooperatives. The cooperatives that we're creating in Preston are not like the Evergreen cooperatives, and they're not exactly like the Mondragon cooperatives either. Each one is an organic development, and each one will receive advice from our trainers and consultants in the Preston Cooperative Development Network according to their specific needs. The ideas that we gather from Mondragon are more about the sort of basic structural principles, such as, for example, it's a good idea to network and connect cooperatives together so that they can mutually support each other rather than compete. It's a good idea to have a bank connected to the cooperative network, which can be very much linked to supporting the financial development of those banks. It's a good idea to have a cooperative university and or educational centre such as in Mondragon, in order to support the change of culture and the social transformation necessary for the economic development of Preston. It's a good idea to have R&D. Well, maybe the University of Central Lancashire can provide innovation and research and development for the cooperatives. And the final pillar of the Mondragon structure, the one that is welfare and health, at the moment, that's less important for us than it was for the Mondragon cooperatives, because of course when Mondragon set up their welfare system, Lagunaro, the reason for that was because people in the Basque Country and in Spain in general had no national health service, and so they created their own health service, just like they created their own university and their own bank. They created their own health service. Now in the UK, at least until recently, the health service has been free and open to all, so we haven't found a need as yet to provide that separate pillar as a health service. So our idea about Mondragon is to take the very general basic principles about the way it's organized rather than the detail of how it must be done. So we're not imposing an idea of exact cooperative development from the exact way it's done in Mondragon, but what we are saying is that these are the general good ideas from Mondragon that we want to promote.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Wendy Keats says you speak a great deal about the worker co-op model, but can other co-op models be used, such as producer marketing?
Yes, that's a really good question. We are promoting worker-owned cooperatives because we believe that as part of the Preston model, we're very keen on encouraging a different way of governing business. So we're very taken by the idea that worker owners are able to be empowered, to have agency, to take decisions about how a business is run, and to do that in a way which promotes democracy. So that, if you like, is our vision for what we're doing. Now, that does not mean that we're denying or negating the value of other cooperative models. And as a matter of fact, the Preston Cooperative Education Centre, which will be part of the Cooperative University, will most probably be a multi-stakeholder cooperative where you will have the owners will be the members of staff, but the students will also take part in the governance of the university, and so will supporting stakeholders like local businesses. And the local businesses and the students and the worker owner staff, they will all be part of the governance of the cooperative. So that will be a multi-stakeholder cooperative. We're also working to create union cooperatives. The idea of the union cooperative we're taking from someone called Michael Peck, who works with an organization called One Worker, One Vote. And they do a lot of work in Cincinnati in the US. And the idea behind the union co-op is to ensure that trade unions that have a very strong presence in the United Kingdom, that trade unions have a role in our cooperatives. As some of you may know, in Mondragon, there are no trade unions. And although that sounds strange at first, it actually is completely logical, because if you are a worker owner and you have an issue at work, it's difficult to know who you should complain to except yourself. So that works for them in Mondragon. It probably won't work necessarily for us in the UK, because it's hard to imagine a working organization that is not involved and connected with the trade union. So we're creating a union co-op following the guidelines from Michael Peck in the US, and the union will have a role in the cooperative, which will be what in Mondragon is the social council role. So they'll have a role that takes care of the welfare of people who work. So yes, so we're considering different cooperatives, and of course we would never deny someone the value of a different kind of cooperative. It's just that our focus for 2 years is specifically on worker-owned cooperatives for the reasons I've described.
Well, Julian, you actually managed to answer 3 of the questions that came in that one response, so you're very efficient. We did have a follow-up question from Eric Tusking on the credit union question, which is, did the credit unions push back when you talked about the bank? And I suppose I'll add in there, and can you talk a bit about the ownership structure of the bank?
Well, the bank
is
isn't
the startup of the bank, I suppose, in the concept of starting the bank.
So, I mean, we have to understand that a lot of what I've been saying is work in progress. So the bank is a huge project, and at the moment we're at the stage of getting funding for it. You need something like £40 million to even get the thing going. So we're at the stage of persuading different stakeholders to invest in the bank. We're encouraging a change in attitude with pension funds, so that pension funds maybe can be invested in the bank. And you know, that's where we're at the moment, and the governance of the bank and those aspects in terms of details are still under discussion. We have a steering group. That steering group is now being converted into a board of directors, and eventually when the bank gets going, it will have some sort of cooperative governance structure. But you know, all of that is work in progress. So we haven't had any opposition from credit unions. We all work to similar principles and ways of seeing the world. So that's so far so good. You know, obviously our purpose and our drive is towards collaboration and cooperation, not causing any issues or problems for others.
It sounds like it's being received as complimentary. So Suzette Snow-Cobb from the US is asking, perhaps too early yet, but would Preston be interested in hosting a study tour or a visit?
Yeah, well, we're perfectly happy to do that. If people want to email me with ideas, exchange ideas, specific proposals, whatever, completely open and grateful for people's interest. So yes, please, yes. And by the way, although we're happy to have people come and visit us in Preston and provide whatever we can, we're also happy to learn from others as well. We don't believe that we have all the answers. So to create a forum for exchange of ideas and mutually supportive visits, for example, would be right up our street.
Thank you. Okay, Roger Peters is asking, will there be an opportunity for local residents to invest their savings in the co-op bank, such as an alternative to the stock market?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the bank will be like a normal bank, except it'll be run cooperatively, and there'll be as many opportunities as possible for local residents as well as local businesses, and not just cooperative businesses, other businesses in Preston, to invest their money via the bank in ways which provide a return, but which are also ethical and fair. And I think there's a lot of appetite in Preston for that kind of thing.
Excellent, thank you. And our final question, which is from Ernest Culberson, which is, do you offer or are there monetary literacy courses?
Well, right now, we don't offer courses exactly. What we offer is consultancy. So if a potential cooperative business wants to start up, we have consultancy and training experts who are part of the Preston Cooperative Development Network. And as part of their consultancy and training, they can offer support in education around money matters as well. But that's specifically directed to specific proposals. However, in the future, when we have the Preston Cooperative Education Centre set up, all of those things will definitely be part of what we have to offer. We'll be offering a full range of business skills, if you like, which would be transferable to any business, on top of things which are specifically geared towards cooperative development, such as how do you govern in a cooperative way? You know, what is it like to share management? What does participatory democracy mean? And of things of that kind. What are the principles? What are the values? How do the principles and values actually get put into practice, rather than just be a kind of wish list on the wall? All of that kind of thing. we'll be looking at. And we'll be looking at that at different levels. We'll be looking at that in terms of what used to be called in Britain trade union education, practical skills for people who practically want to move forward with their cooperative businesses on the one hand, and on the other hand we'll have a degree in cooperative culture, leadership and management for people who want to take that a bit further.
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, it seems like you have left no stone unturned in terms of this approach to moving the community forward. So, I mean, I think it sounds like a utopia to many of us here today, and we're just so grateful that you've taken your time after all the other work that you've done in managing everything that you are right now to be able to share that with us. And you know, I'm sure I speak on behalf of a lot of people here when I say that I really, really genuinely hope that all of the initiatives that are part of this can weather this storm and even come out better on the other side or somehow innovate. It's you know, a lot of unknowns right now, but I think based on what you're saying, the foundation there sounds incredible. So I will. And we've got some thank yous already rolling into you, Julian. So your time is and your focus today is really appreciated. I just wanted to flag for other people what you see on the screen here right now, which is the 2 webinars that have already happened, the recordings that are available now at managementstudies.coop, and also the next one coming up on April 22nd. We're really excited about that one as well. So please do join us if you can. You can register for that next one on managementstudies.coop as well. And as you had mentioned, actually, Julian, in terms of that, I guess the complexities of cooperatives and understanding how to really translate what are the principles and the values into practice, that's a big part of what we also do at St. Mary's within the cooperative management education programs, which is really helping people to navigate that complexity so that they know how to manage, govern, and lead. So if that stands out to folks right now, then please do get in touch with us about some of our programs coming up. It's the season now to apply, and that's all still in progress. We are online and we can work through all of this. So thank you everyone for your time. We've reached the hour, so I will close us out soon. And there's a question about recordings. I will be posting that to the website later on today, and I'll be making sure that in your follow-up email going out tomorrow, you'll get a link to it as well, so you don't have to hunt. We'll send it to you as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Julian. Appreciate it. All the best to everyone in weathering this storm. We congratulate everyone on their work and sticking with it.
Thank you.
Okay, Julian, I think we covered off most of the questions and just seeing lots of big thank yous coming into you. So just know that we had a good group today and lots of good questions.
Okay, good. So that was okay, was it?
You did awesome.
Cool. Okay.
You did actually just right on the money for everything we wanted to talk about today, and timing and everything. So despite not being at your best, you come off perfect.
Oh, well, that's good to know. It doesn't get much better than perfect, does it?
Should I give you notes for improvement? No, no, that was great. So thank you. We'll sign off, and you take care of yourself.
Okay, thank you both. Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.